Have you wondered what financial advisors actually think about finances? This is your sneak peek at the conversations within Financial Design Studio. Michelle Smollenberger, the CEO here, will be your host as you go behind the designs.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Michelle, the CEO here at Financial Design Studio, and I have Jake Turner in the house with me today.
Hello, Michelle. Good to be back on the podcast.
Hi, Jake, who is our financial planning associate and learning a ton. We're in the middle of tax season, so he's been jumping right in, and we have to do a little bit of a reality check here first. So
yes.
We recorded this podcast. It was like middle of March, so I think
it
was
early
right
March.
At.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're re-recording this. So technicalities, the sound wasn't great, even good enough to use. So we're re-recording this. And what's funny about that, though, is a month ago, Jake was getting ready. He was like a week away, I think, from sitting for the CFP exam. So we were kind of talking about how it's overwhelming and stressful. And so now when we're talking about this, we're actually talking on the other side of the exam. And he just found out yesterday his results, which I'll let you share.
Yeah, I officially passed the
Woo!
CFP exam
Yay!
back in March. So I was reading the results. There was about 3,500 people that sat for
Wow.
it. And it had about a 65% pass rate, which is normal. And yeah, I was one of the fortunate ones to get through. So I'm very excited to be not studying as intensively. Now it's more just, learning and applying in real life.
Or at all. I mean, are you still studying?
I'm always studying a little.
I know. That's funny. No, that's so exciting. Great job. And
Thanks.
it's like nice that it's official because
Yes.
right after you get kind of like this, you pass.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I had an inkling, but it's a preliminary pass, and then a month later you get the official results. So yes, very excited.
that's cool. So exciting. So as we're talking about this now, we're going to try and remember what that was like, because what we're talking about in today's episode is when life is too much, when you're overwhelmed, when life is busy, but you need to take care of certain things. We talk about finances here. So when I know I need to get help or do something, but life is just too busy and overwhelming, and so I don't even know where to start, and so then we probably don't start. So we're going to talk through times where we have been overwhelmed, we've been in situations like that, and kind of how to get out of that. So when we were talking about this last month, we'll take it back. You're getting ready to sit for the CFP.
Yep.
And you jumped in. So when you started, we were like, hey, you're going to help Steve with tax season.
Exactly.
And so you were learning everything there was with tax season, because this was middle of March, which is kind of a really busy time when people kind of start sending last minute documents.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been pretty much since early March through today. We're sitting down. It's April 12th, so just under a week until the deadline. And it's been, pretty much nonstop since then.
Yep. So you had that going on. And then you're like, hey, I'm going to run a marathon in London. And so in my head, I think I had sent you a Slack message, and I was like, okay, you either really like a challenge or you're really bored. And you were like, no, I just have this great opportunity to be able to run, right?
Right. Yeah, it definitely wasn't in the initial plan, I would say. But just for anybody who's interested, it's the London Marathon in London, England, and it's a very popular marathon, very hard to get into. It's a lottery system, and I have entered into the lottery for the last, I think, starting in 2014, so 9 years in a row, and never gotten in. So it's just kind of one of those things where every December when it's time to register, I throw my name in, I get the email in January, you're sorry you were not selected. And so I didn't even think about it. And then I got the email, you're in. I'm like, oh, goody. I have a new career, diving into tax season, studying, for my CFP exam. And we'll squeak in some marathon training too. But it's going to happen.
Exactly.
It's going to happen.
Now you're like 10 days away from that.
Yep, exactly.
10 or 11. Yeah. So back then we were talking about how it can be overwhelming. Like you had a lot going on, and for other people, that might look like maybe it's the holidays, tax season. We'll talk through that a little bit. But there's when you were thinking about that, just kind of take us back to how that felt, kind of being overwhelmed, or when you're like, I am at capacity, I can't add one more thing. How does that feel, or how can you kind of describe what that feels so people, I'm sure they can relate to this, but. Yeah,
it can feel a bit, overwhelming is obvious, but it can feel a little daunting and almost demoralizing. Like there's only so many hours in a day, and sleep is very important for brain function, and brain function is important for studying.
Yeah.
Sleep is also important if you're, and I was not running very much. I'd be lucky to get in 3 days a week, which is not ideal, but so for me, I had to say, all right, what are the most important things? Like, I need to be a great employee. I need to, dive into tax season and help out where I can. I don't need to pass this exam, but I really, really want to.
Yeah.
And I've, been studying, essentially for 2 years through the education program as well. And so that was a priority. And so the marathon training, and I also still want to, show up. I don't even have children, but show up and be a good husband to my wife, Katie. And so, those three things were definitely priorities. And then I just said, you know what, I'll get a run in when I can. And then, once the studying is over, I'll jam a little bit more into that last month. Not ideal for any runners out there, that, but I will get to a place where I can at least enjoy the London Marathon. And I'm confident to say that I will. So I think that's, you need to prioritize. And I think that just kind of laying out a plan and prioritizing, all right, where's my energy, my time, and my attention going to go to? And then what is just going to get tossed, and maybe that's, something is going to have to give. You can't do everything all of the time. But I think when we get in those moments where we have a lot coming at us socially, professionally, emotionally, maybe family, you can kind of shut down and with that overwhelm. So I think, it's important. Anybody listening out there, I'm sure everybody can relate, is to just take a minute and just figure out, all right, what is critical and what do I need to punt for now?
I think too, when we're overwhelmed, you want, like you mentioned, you want to do each of those things well.
Right.
And so there's almost like this additional pressure to do them all really well. But when you have so many things to do, and in order to do them well, like you're saying, it takes time, rest, all of this. So I think that's where, when you combine all of that, that's where it just becomes this tipping point of, I can't do any more. And you have to realize where your points are.
Exactly.
Like, okay, I cannot take one more thing on right now. Now, something we had talked through was knowing when those things are going to end. So you had a lot on your plate then, but you also had like end dates for those things that were kind of staggering off.
Right. If this was going to go on in perpetuity, I don't know.
Right? Exactly.
But yeah, I knew March 10th, the exam would be done, good, bad, or ugly. That would be, kind of one of those, something lifted. And then, there's a date for this marathon, and not that I'm going to stop running, but this is, a date at the end. There's a tax deadline.
Yep.
That's coming up next week. So then it'll be less, heavy into tax, more into the planning side of things. So yeah, and I think that's the way with most people. There's seasons in life. If you're an executive out there and you have a presentation to the board coming up, you're probably spending a little more time nights and weekends, going through what you're going to say, getting those slides just perfect, making sure that your story is straight. And that, hey, on that date after that, that big weight will be lifted for now, and I can focus more on the day to day. So I think there's a lot of relatability there for different people in different professions.
Yeah. So I think when we kind of talk through all these things, this is where people are, and they're in these seasons now. Some people, like you said, you can't do this in perpetuity, or else something has to give. So something will fail or flop, And so it's when we're in these seasons, like, how do we get out of them? I think this describes a lot of people when they're thinking about retirement. How much longer can I do this? Wait, what's my relationship with my kids or my spouse going to be like if I keep doing this? What's my health going to be like if I keep doing this? It's these situations that drive people to make decisions. So we make decisions from the state of overwhelm. We make decisions from times when we're healthy, and in a good place. So we have to realize that the decisions that are made in these different times, the quality of the decision will be different, like wherever we are.
Right. There's typically some sort of pain point is the quickest way to get someone or for yourself to act. I think what we're trying to spell out here is, don't let it get to that point. And if something's a priority, then carve out the time to make it to put action behind it.
Yep. Yeah. So some hope as we're describing this, we really just kind of want to like bring this feeling to light, because whether this defines you in a season right now, or you can think back and you're like, oh, I know what that feels like because I've just been there. It's just reminding you of what it feels like so that maybe you avoid it in the future. And also that you know that there's help out there to help you out of this. So if there's things that you're wanting to achieve, there are people out there to help you to do those things, even if you are really busy and overwhelmed. So we're going to kind of start to talk about those things. So when we talk about getting out of these times, let's kind of describe the process to decrease this overwhelm. You touched on one of these things, and that's kind of like prioritizing. So kind of realizing, what is it that I want to be a priority, and how do we kind of decide what matters most?
Yeah, I think, well, if it's just yourself, if you're the only one involved in the decision, which it rarely is, then spending some time kind of with your thoughts and figuring out in order what am I trying to accomplish, and what is that timeline, and then you can kind of work backwards from there. Typically, you're going to need to involve your family, your partner, if it's something work related, your team, your coworkers. So figure out who are those critical people that need to be involved, and then decide together. What do we really need to accomplish right now? And I think from a kind of a personal standpoint, hopefully, you, your partner, your family, you kind of have those values, those things that are most important. And if you can just kind of come together and realign to those things, all of a sudden everything will be a little bit more clear. And if you've never had those conversations, like, hey, we value, being outside together in beautiful places, enjoying a meal together, consistently, putting those things together and making sure that you're staying true to that. And if you get off course, we all get off course, kind of regrounding yourselves in what are those most important things.
Yeah. So when you're overwhelmed, when life is crazy, you know how it kind of feels painful? Like you almost feel like at the end of the day, when you're studying, you're like, I don't want to be doing this. I really wish I didn't. Like you start to have those thoughts of, this is ridiculous. I can't do this forever. If this is, for example, if this is happening in perpetuity, where you're like, every day I come home and I think the same thing. I actually think a lot of people don't pay attention to those thoughts. They're like, this is just what work is. This is just what life is. But it's like, no. But it actually, like if you listen to those things, I think we actually tell ourselves the things we don't want to be doing. And we kind of highlight like what our priorities are. I think sometimes people don't jump out and they're like, I can do this. I can make my priorities a priority. And so I think that voice of like actually listening to that and just saying, no, you're right. I don't have to do this. It can be different. I think that's sometimes like when it's painful, listen to what you're saying, what you tell your family, what you tell your spouse. When you're driving home and you're like, I wish it wasn't 7:00 at night. Listen to yourself and try and do whatever you can, because sometimes when let's say you're leading a team at work or something, when you make a change for yourself, you're actually making a change for everyone in your team who also doesn't want to be there working late.
Exactly.
So you're actually showing people that it's possible. And hey, if we work as a team, we can all help each other accomplish our priorities.
Yeah. Yeah. I think back to, there was a leader in a company I worked at before, and we had very generous vacation policy, and he was always like, hey, make sure you take all your vacation time, you've earned it, but he never took a vacation. And so it's like, well, what example is he setting? And then so whether people consciously felt it or not, they're like, well, I can't go on spring break for a week with my kids because I'm going to miss so much work. And it's those things. It's specifically as a leader, like be the leader you want to see, and then people will recognize that.
Yeah, I did. I think early in my career, I had someone kind of telling me they used to work at like in tax and accounting, and so it'd be these like busy work seasons, and so like your peers or your colleagues who are above you and kind of partners, I remember him saying, I looked up to them, and he was just like, I don't want to be that. Right. I don't want to be that, looking like I'm much older than I am and working that much. He's like, that's what I'm aspiring to. So I just think like really challenge what it is that you're aspiring to, because as we talked about in our last episode, retirement and transitioning from those working years, it does not have to look like it traditionally has. So just kind of bucking the norm, what it is you want it to look like that's what we're really encouraging you to do.
Yeah, and everybody's version is going to be different. So figure out, what you value the most, what you want to spend your time doing. Do those things. I mean, we do what we want to do, whether we think it or not. Where we put our time and our energy and our focus is what's important. So if you're spending time, energy, and focus on things that you don't think are important, yet they're consuming all your time, that is a perfect kind of wake up moment for you to think, why?
Yeah.
And what would I like to be doing? And then you can work a plan from there.
No, it's great. And what if, and the first time you do it, we're like, I am going to leave work when I can, like at 5 o'clock or whatever that is. And I think once you start doing it, you realize it's possible. So really, we've kind of talked about like when the pain of staying the same is greater than, I want to get out of this. It's like that pain of staying the same is too much. So we've got to move on. So we said there's help out there. So let's kind of talk about what help looks like. So I feel like this applies to so many things in life.
Sure.
It's really first just admitting I need help.
Yeah.
I am overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
And then it is out there. So we kind of have to define like, what is it I need help with? What are some situations, or is there a way we can define what that is? Because sometimes it might be confusing what I actually need help with.
Right. And I mean, how many people have you talked to either, socially or people maybe thinking about engaging with somebody in financial planning? It's like, you're talking about what you do, help people have these great retirements and set them up for success. And they're like, I really got to dig into that. I can't even tell you the last time I even looked at XYZ account. And then, reroute the conversation somewhere else. And it's like, they just kind of punt it down the road.
Yeah.
So I think if you're someone who's like, I don't really know where my money is, what it's doing right now. I see some headlines, but I don't have time to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Figure out, all right, if now's the time, life is complex. You're ready for a partner to help you organize everything going on in your financial life, put a plan in place and help you execute that plan. If that's what you're looking to do, then let's figure out a way to make it happen. And if that's somebody that if you're looking for somebody, in that sphere, certified financial planner, that's a very comprehensive, high level certification. So, you're getting some, a pro who's going to be able to walk you down this journey and introduce you to other professionals that can help. Let's say, for example, I have 3 kids. I've been married for 20 years. I don't have a will. Working with that certified financial planner, they're not going to draft your will for you, but hey, they're going to introduce you to an estate attorney, and they're going to lay out everything that you need to get done to make sure that all of your wishes, your assets, everything is put in order. That's just one example.
Yeah. So that can be like a great starting point to even figure, okay, I need help with my finances. So a CFP can help me figure out who it is that's needed to help me along the way. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Kind of organize everything. Not to jump too far ahead, but I think the first thing is we're specifically talking about your financial life. What is it that you want to have done?
Yeah. Yep.
What am I trying to accomplish? Do I know I need life insurance? And I haven't got around to it yet. Your CFP can help point you in that direction. Or do you just need to talk to somebody that's going to give you a great term life insurance policy?
Exactly. So that's actually something that I was thinking. Let's say that they're even a person that's like, I know I need help, but I don't know where to start.
Right.
So if it's finances, like that CFP is a great, well-rounded, so they can tell you what you need. I think the other thing is when you know you need help, I think one of the things that stops people from getting help when they're overwhelmed is they're like, maybe they're kind of embarrassed and they're a little bit like, I don't know. I think, I'm not in a good place, or I haven't saved enough. Well, we don't know. Nobody knows. And so professionals are in a place to help you from wherever it is you're starting.
Exactly.
So they're like, hey, well, here's where you're at today. We want to get you to where you want to go. That's the whole point of starting. So if you feel like, hey, I can't get started because I don't know where it is I'm trying to go, like that's exactly what they're going to help with too. So it's a great point where it's okay. And the CFP is like a well-rounded. So I think that's really helpful. There are some different situations where we do see people like commonly come to us when things are kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
So we think through some of these transitions. So death, divorce, retirement, a new job, maybe you have more responsibility at work or in life. So maybe new family, like new kids. But what of those, maybe some of these people that don't have like the time, the temperament, or the desire to manage their own finances. They're not necessarily going through a transition, but just people who are like, life is just busy.
Yeah.
That's exactly who we help.
Exactly. Yep. Your life is going to reach a level of complexity where your time, your focus, and what you really care about is not, diving into spreadsheets and figuring out which assets are in all your mutual funds. And then, figuring out, is this insurance enough, not enough, so that's what we're here to help with, not only to educate you along the way with all the resources on our website and our podcast and our YouTube videos, but, partnering with the families that we partner with to give them that clarity and confidence to move forward, knowing that, hey, I've got a partner that's keeping their eyes on all of this so I can focus on what's important to me.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful and a great reminder that is exactly what we provide to clients is this clarity. Let's get some answers. Let's put numbers to this so that you can be confident. So we're going to now talk about kind of like this confidence comes from the knowing, and confidence, like that's what we provide. As the professional, we're saying when we can look at your finances and we can say we're confident in how the numbers look, then you who's actually going to live that out can now be confident and go and do those things. So I think that's super helpful. And so we're going to kind of break this down a little bit further of like what professionals can help, or like we've even said, what do I need help with? Because it's tax season right now, it is so natural that people ask accountants these questions. Accountants, do tax, bookkeeping, but that is different than insurance. It is different than financial planning. It's forward looking. It's not taking a stack of documents and, entering them in to see what the difference is of what you owe. And so I can even think of like questions that we've gotten through tax season already that are really financial planning questions of, hey, I have this new benefit that's available. So let's talk through some of these so that we can help people know that, hey, there's other people besides like your accountant that might be better equipped, or your accountant can be a good place to start, and hopefully they will be pointing you in the direction.
Right. I mean, oftentimes, in going through, all the returns that we've gone through this year, there's so many planning opportunities, but when you're doing a tax return, you're looking in the rearview mirror, right? It's taking on, you're kind of reconciling everything from the year before, figuring out, hey, essentially, did I pay enough? Did I pay too much? And then moving forward. But if you're working with, a financial professional with, for example, they've got an enrolled agent as part, or they have a CPA, a certified public accountant that is involved with these decisions, because you just said it, Michelle, taxes weave through every decision, investments, insurance for sure, estate planning. Oh my goodness, there's so many different tax rules around different types of trusts, and where do we put this life insurance policy? Do we put it inside of a trust? Do we not? How do we fund it? I mean, there's just tax burdens everywhere. So back to your point, though, if you're looking for specific tax help, tax return help, CPA is great. Enrolled agent, an IRS enrolled agent is basically like a accountant that's going to specialize on the 1040 and everything that feeds into that 1040. So if you have rental income, if you have a small business, if you've got farm land, if you've got an S corp, all of those things that feed into your individual return, that's where the enrolled agent, it really specializes in those areas. Yeah,
because I do think some people think I need help with taxes, and a CPA is a really well-known designation, so they think only of CPA. So CPA is another exam where there's 4 parts, and some of those parts are mostly used like in corporate accounting, audit, things like that. So an enrolled agent is a piece of the CPA where it's just specific to individual taxes, like tax returns. So that is helpful to kind of help people understand. So if you're looking for tax help, CPA, enrolled agent, those are the 2 that you would want to make sure that whoever is helping you, that they have one of those designations. Yeah, I agree.
So let's talk about like financial advisors. So in the financial advisor world, they can take a lot of different shapes and forms, right? Anybody can call themselves a financial advisor, essentially.
Yeah. It's actually scary that like there is a really tiny, short little test, easy test, that you actually can give advice if you pass it.
Exactly. So that is one, know what you're getting into as a consumer out there, going into these, ask some questions, what different designations do you hold? How are you compensated? What is that going to look like? What can I expect moving forward? Just make sure that you go in eyes wide open, so that, just because somebody's holding themselves out as a financial advisor does not necessarily mean that they are. Just make sure that what you're looking for is what they're going to provide, I think is probably the main thing. So be very clear on that. Because you will, there's just different ways that people are compensated for what they do. So financial advisor can take on a lot of forms. We've mentioned certified financial planner, CFP, is a great overall designation, kind of the gold standard in comprehensive financial planning.
Yes.
You may see a designation out there called a CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst, which Mr. Rob Stoll here at our firm is. It's a financial analyst. It is a rigorous coursework and knowledge base on all things financial instruments. So they are going to, be the ones, if you, are looking for some, somebody to manage your money, and you are really interested in some long, short, option strategies, that they're going to be experts in that. And so, but oftentimes there are people who hold dual designations, like Rob, he's a CFP. CFA, meaning he's got the comprehensive knowledge, but he can go very deep on the investment side.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to look at as well.
So Steve on our team is an enrolled agent. Rob is a CFA, which came in really handy with the recent Silicon Valley Bank, when the issues with that bank, because as a CFA, you know how to research companies, analyze companies. I mean, and we're not just talking like go to CNBC and see how their return is this year, like their performance and last year. Like this is really in-depth stuff. How many loans do they hold? I mean, I'm even like not doing it justice with this. Rob can
listen
tell
to Rob's
you.
podcast.
Yeah, reading all of these filings, this is the world he lives in. And so there's just this level of analysis that they're trained in. So those are a couple like on our team as we're going down the list. Okay, so touching on or staying on investments, I do think that sometimes people find someone, so let's say, a CFA for investments, while there are a lot of people that have it, it's also hard to find CFAs at the same time. And so you might see them, for example, if you're kind of like with a broker or a secure, like let's say you work with JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley, the people that you work with like as an advisor level, they probably wouldn't be the CFA.
Right.
The people above them that are choosing the investments that are saying, this is what you're going to invest, people that come into the branch in. So the CFAs are kind of at a higher level. This is where it's unique to our team that Rob is a CFA and he's talking with clients. So we're sharing this knowledge and information with you directly. It's not at some level where you kind of don't really get to hear from them. So why I'm saying this is because the advisor that you work with, you want to make sure they can answer your questions because you want to know what you're invested in. We have found in the last couple of years, it's been critical to know what you're actually invested in within the funds that you own. And so when we can actually spell that out and tell you, now you know, again, giving you more clarity and more confidence. And so these pieces are really important. And that's why it's really cool that like on our team, we have such a variety of designations. In the investment space, you could also, like we said, there's really simple exams, so like license exams to sell certain mutual funds or things like that. So there's a wide variety on the investment side, and I would say that's where most people probably get disappointed the most, where they're like, I thought my advisor was going to do this for me. I thought they were going to give me maybe more planning, more advice on insurance or the things that we've been talking about, but they actually can't. They're only able to give you help like with your investment account. And so I think most people kind of get disappointed there the most, where they thought they were going to get a lot, but then they don't.
Right.
And so if you find that that's you, where you thought you were going to get more than you have, or you find I want some tax advice with the investments, but they can't give you that, like they're not allowed to because they aren't designated that way. You do not have to stay there.
Right.
I want you to know, like, you can move, you can change. And so it really is like when you realize you're not getting what you need, you need to look for someone who can get that for you and give that to you because they're out there.
Yeah.
So.
It'd be like, if you hire a plumber and they do a great job fixing your tub and your sink, installing your new InSinkerator and everything looks great. And you're like, hey, while you're here, can you make me some filet mignon and recommend a nice bottle of wine? And he's like, that sounds wonderful. I'd like some too, but I'm a plumber. I can fix your sink. So it's like you need to know what people's specialties are, right?
Yes. Yep.
You can't expect everything from all people.
Yes. And I think when we even kind of define like who it is that we work best with, there's kind of like a few circles, like everyone out there who is saving money, they all like need to figure out where that goes. Some people say, I know what to do. I enjoy this. And so they're like, okay, I do this. Within that circle, you have people that don't exactly know and they need help on maybe one thing. And so they get help on one thing. But within that tiny circle in the middle, there are people who have complex finances. You're a high income earner, a corporate executive, near retiree. You're in these transitions and you do need tax planning. You do need custom wealth management. These are the people that we work best with. So there's, all different professionals out there to help people with the different levels of what you need analysis. So, so when we even when we talk about now, like insurance license, that's another one, even here in Illinois, if we wanted to help a client to say, do I have what I need, or should I change something that I have, with property and casualty, health, life, whatever that is, you need to be licensed in Illinois with insurance so that you can actually even give advice. So not even just to sell products. So Trevor on our team has an insurance license, so he can we can do that analysis to tell people what they have or what they need. So
Yeah,
many
Trevor helped
people know
me
that. Right?
understand what I had and what I needed when I first started. So thank you, Trevor.
Exactly. So, and that's what I love about our team. It's like somebody knows, the answer to whatever question it is. So I think really big in this investment space, because that's the biggest thing that most people, I just think they think investments and tax. Like when they think about their money, those are probably two of the big ones if you're saving. And so it's, some of these investment designations, or if they're a broker, just because they're helping you at, a big branch,
A big bank
does not mean that they're a CFP. And so we're just really helping you understand that.
But they could, like if you are at, I know, let's say,
Yeah.
you're working with a bank and you've got, your banker that you work with, they may have some money in
Yes.
mutual funds. They may have a CFP on staff that
You're
you
right.
could engage with if you want to go into some more in-depth planning. But your banker's not going to be able to do that for you, right?
Exactly.
Because again, they're going to do what they are paid to do and what they know how to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's really the purpose of this, is just kind of tell you what's out there. So then as you're starting to kind of move out of this, I'm overwhelmed, I need help, and you're thinking about what help to get. It's, okay, these are the different options, and now I know where to look. Okay.
Oh, yes. All kinds of options. Just be clear on what you want, and ask those good questions before you sign on the dotted line.
Yep. All right. So before we finish up here, let's talk about the before and after. So before you took the CFP exam, when we recorded this, it was perfect, because we're like, you're overwhelmed.
I was.
And
I was glazed over.
Talk me through that, which I kind of felt bad because you had like a week until the exam. So thankfully you were like gracious enough. And then now, so how does it feel afterwards? Now you basically have, we're just at the tail end of tax season, and then you have the marathon.
Yeah.
How are you feeling, like, as you're kind of moving out of that state of overwhelm?
I feel like a reborn person. Like I like the sun is out. I don't know. Like I am personifying spring right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because spring does feel like that here.
And I'm feeling it. Because I was like, I'm not going to lie. I was probably spending towards the end there upwards 25, 30 hours a week studying, on top of working full time. So it basically consumed most of my waking moments. So now I have all this time catching up on shows I've been missing out on, watching some more movies.
We've been
some
giving
nice
you some
runs. Yeah.
We've been giving him some new show ideas.
Yeah,
That's
going out
funny.
to dinner, cooking a little more than I was before. So yeah, it's just it's been, and everything kind of feels like definitely in balance again. I'm always, there's so much to learn in this business. So I'm always researching and learning and figuring out what I can learn more.
I was going to say, what's the next designation that you're thinking about? I know you're thinking about one.
Nothing to disclose just yet. I'm just really enjoying diving in, finishing up this tax season, and working with all our great clients that we have right now.
Yep. No, it's great. And I think that it's just so interesting. Like, so we live in Illinois, right? And there's like seasons. And so this week, especially because it's beautiful outside, like I know people are feeling this. So this is really a great time for this episode, just helping you to think, just like outside, where you get outside, it's like you can feel like this too, even with your finances.
Exactly. And I do. So this is kind of apropos. So, most people have filed their returns. Maybe they've got a sweet refund check. Maybe they wrote a big check that they weren't expecting. That doesn't have to happen every year, everyone.
Yep.
Your goal is not to get the biggest refund check from the IRS, because that means you are withholding way too much on your paychecks, and you could have had that money to spend, to enjoy, to invest throughout the year. So, don't wait until April of next year to decide it's time to put a plan in place. Work with that person that's going to help you in a tax efficient way, maximize whatever you're trying to do with your money. If it's saving for retirement, if it's maximizing, your income now, anything like that, don't wait until April of next year. Don't give the government a tax-free loan on your money for a full year.
Especially when you can get money market rates of like 4%.
4+%.
So yeah, you keep that interest.
Exactly.
All right. No, this is great. This has been really helpful, I think, just to help people realize there is help out there, who it is that can help them, and just moving kind of in this state, just like we are here, spring, just kind of moving from this sense of freedom, out of the overwhelm, not being pressured into, I'm not doing a good job. It can look different. And as advisors, that's our goal. So that once you decide, okay, I'm going to do this, and you start working with us, that is exactly what we do. We come alongside you, and we now help to hold you accountable, to say, hey, okay, this is what we're going to help you do. Hey, can you send me this? Can you send me this? And then once we have that information, you can go continue to be busy if you want to. But the nice thing is that then we're going to say, hey, you're doing a great job here or here. And hey, we're just, we need to do something here, but you have help. And so you have someone on your side. So as you're busy, if that has to continue, at least you can have some good news along the way and you can have some help. So you know that someone else is saying, you're doing a great job. Like, this is all we need to continue doing. And I just think that helps to lighten the load, and it just helps to encourage you to keep going if you kind of find yourself in that place.
Absolutely. And can I put one plug in for people?
Absolutely.
So if you've listened to this far, we really appreciate you. If there's a topic that you would like to hear us banter on this podcast, or maybe you have a specific question that you'd like us to address, we won't use your name or any information. Don't worry. Send us an email, podcast@financialdesignstudio.com. That is podcast@financialdesignstudio.com. And yes, we would love to address your questions, comments in our next show.
Exactly. So you can check out the show notes from today. We've talked about a few different other podcast episodes. So if you're new, check those out. Take a listen, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.
Everyone.
Thanks for listening. To find any links or resources related to this episode, check out our show notes. Your host was Michelle Smallenberger, a certified financial planner and CEO. The guests featured are from Financial Design Studio, a team of experienced, fiduciary, fee-only advisors based in Chicago. Anna Lewis is the executive producer of the Behind the Designs podcast. And as always, for more information about Financial Design Studio and who we are, check out our website, financialdesignstudio.com. And final note, no content discussed on this podcast should be taken as financial advice. Financial Design Studio accepts no responsibility for your individual choices. We'll see you in the next episode.